Congratulations, your home is under contract. Now, there are a few things that as a seller, you are going to need to communicate to the buyer in the form of some disclosures. So let's talk about what that looks like. I'm Jennie Hendricks at Century 21 Prestige Realty. Welcome back. Thank you. Today we are going to talk about what you as a seller need to communicate to the buyer once your home has gone under contract. Failure to disclose some of these things can really have some consequences. Of course, there can be legal issues, there can be financial impacts. So sort of the saying in the industry is, when in doubt, disclose. Let's talk about what that looks like. The first thing I want to let you know is, not only is it important to disclose what you know about the house, because that's what you're supposed to do, but I promise, once those buyers have moved in, the neighbors are going to tell the buyers everything that they know about that property. So it's far better if there's any defects that it comes up front from you as the seller. Now, disclosure laws vary a little bit from state to state. We're just going to talk about what you need to disclose as a seller in Utah. Three kind of overarching principles when we're talking about seller disclosures. The first is, if you have specific knowledge, you must disclose. Okay, so if you know for sure whatever it is about the house, that's something that does need to be communicated to the buyer. If you are confident that the answer is no on any of these disclosure items, then you're perfectly fine just to say no. If you genuinely do not know, don't guess, because of course this information is going to the buyer and they're using it as part of their evaluation process on their inspections and their due diligence. So if you don't know, don't guess, just say you don't know, and that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, let's talk about some of the things that sellers are going to be asked to communicate to the buyer. Most often the way this is done is on a form that your agent will give to you to fill out. It's called the Seller Property Condition Disclosure Form, and it's about 5-6 pages long, and it just goes through kind of putting the house through its paces. It's just sort of asking you to explain what you know about the home. So the first question is ownership. How long have you owned the property? Have you lived in the property? Have you rented it out? Who has been the occupant of that property? The second is, have there been any additions or remodels done? And this is interesting because the form asks, have you as the seller done any additions or remodels, or has there been any done previous to your ownership? So at any point in time, are you aware of any additions and remodels, structural changes, other alterations to the property? How is the property used, in the sense that, is it a conforming use? So if you are renting the property out, is it in a zone that allows rentals, or is it a non-conforming use for the property? And is there any existing or threatened legal action for the property? This form also asks if the property is in the green belt. It's kind of a long topic to unpack what a green belt is, but it has to do with how the property is assessed at the county assessor's office. If a property is in the green belt, it's considered agricultural land, and so the taxes are going to be very, very low. If you sell that property and the use changes, the new buyer may not be in the green belt any longer. And so in the contract, it should be negotiated who is going to pay for that assessment. Because once a property comes out of the green belt, the assessor is going to charge you 5 years of back taxes at the new rate. So there's sort of a recovery process on that tax abatement that happens. So if you have any questions on that, Call the county or ask your agent to help you through that. Could be a really big surprise at closing because that can be a substantial financial impact on that greenbelt issue. Okay, how is your roof? Have you had any leaks? Have you made any repairs? Are there any structural issues with the roof? Has it been replaced? Those are all questions that a buyer is going to want to know the answer to. How are your utilities? Where does your natural gas come from? Your power, your phone, cable TV? Who's the provider for those? Has there ever been any issues with those? Water. You guys know in Utah, water is a big deal. So if you are connected to a municipal water, like a public water service, you get your water from the city. That's really all you're going to need to disclose on the seller disclosure form. Now, if you have a non-public source of water, so if you're on a community well, if you have your own private well, there's a lot of information there that's going to need to be disclosed, not just about the well or the organization that runs the well, but also where does the water come from? And again, water is a whole different issue. Maybe we'll do a video on water. It could take days. So anyway, the buyer is going to want to know what is the source for the water on that property. Okay, do you have, are you connected to the sewer or do you have a septic tank? Obviously, that's going to be an important question. Have you ever had any issues with the heating or cooling system in the house? I will give you an example. If your home was built like maybe prior to the 1980s, it's possible that it had electric heat. Sometimes there are heating coils that run through the attic, the ceiling, just above the ceiling. Many times that heat has been disconnected and the home has been converted over to like a forced air natural gas. So in that case, you would say, yeah, it used to have this kind of heat. It was disconnected and we've updated to natural gas, forced air, or whatever you have. How about the appliances? Now, it's really important to disclose to the buyer, first of all, what appliances are you going to leave with the home and what appliances are you going to take? In our area, it's pretty common to leave the range, the hood, a dishwasher, disposal. It's about 50-50 on the refrigerator. So that's something that the buyer needs to know. Are they gonna have to buy their own refrigerator or are you gonna leave the one that is in the home? Same thing with the washer and dryer. It's about 50-50 whether the seller wants to leave those or not. So that's the first thing that you should disclose to the buyers. What appliances are you going to be leaving with the home? And then of course you want to disclose the condition. Are they working? The age, have you ever had any issues with them? So forth. How about exterior items? Things like your sprinklers, your rain gutters. Have you had any issues? Have there been any repairs? Termites. Now, I have been told since I moved to Cedar City like 30 years ago that no, we don't need to worry about termites here because we have a freeze and a thaw. I have been told by a pest control professional that we are actually in a moderate area for termites, and I have been involved in several transactions where termites were found. So if you know that you have had termites in the past or actively have termites, that is something that is really important to disclose. Also, if there's been any damage by termites or other pests, it doesn't just say termites, it's talking about all kinds of pests. So if you have a pest issue in your home, that is something that you will need to disclose to the buyer. Okay, any structural items or any issue with the soil. So are you aware of any settlement, any heaving, any sinking, any foundation issues? And it also asks, are you aware of any sliding or earth movement on the property or adjoining the property? So even if it's not happening specifically on your property, if you know that there's an issue next door with sliding or sinking or any soils issues, you do need to disclose that as well. Boundaries and easements. Are you aware of any issues, any disputes with the boundary or any easements that might be going through your property? Do you know if your fence is on the neighbor's property, or is the neighbor's fence on your property? Or are there any boundary disputes or conflicts with said neighbor about any of those issues? Mold. Are you aware of any mold, past or present mold issues in your home? That is something that you will need to tell the buyer about. Any kind of mold on walls, ceilings, floors, any other interior portion. Now it does exclude, like if you get a little mildew in the bathroom, that happens. That's not what this is asking. It's asking, like, are you aware of any significant mold issues? Other hazardous conditions, things like lead-based paint, radon gas, asbestos, toxic materials, any buried storage tanks or lines that might come up later as an issue. Buyers also are going to need to know about your homeowners association. So this is going to be part of your disclosures to get them any minutes, the budget from the HOA, the CCNRs. Is there any upcoming assessments with that HOA? They need to have the contact information for the HOA. Anything that has to do with another entity that gets a say in what you are able to do with that property, that's going to need to be disclosed so the buyer can do their due diligence. Also, if there's any unpaid assessments from that HOA, probably that would be taken care of at closing. Okay, how about insurance? Have you filed a claim on your insurance when you have owned the property? And this is important because if there's too many claims on a certain property, it can actually make the buyer's ability to insure that property more difficult or more expensive. So you got to disclose if there's been any insurance claims on the property. And this is a new one. This just came out on our seller disclosure form, talking about solar panels. If you have solar panels, the buyer needs to know, do you own them? Do you lease them? Is there still money owing on them? Is title going to convey, or does the buyer have to talk to the solar panel company, and if they're leased, qualify for that lease, or negotiate if they're purchased, if there's still any money owing on it, how that is going to be paid. So it is obviously really important to be very transparent, very upfront with the buyer so that they can make a good decision about whether that home is going to be a good fit. Can you sell something that has issues? Sure, you can. I sold a home one time where the slab had actually cracked and shifted in multiple places. The seller disclosed all of that, we priced it accordingly, and it was no problem for the sale. So if you have any questions, if I can be a resource for you, please reach out. I am Jennie Hendricks at Century 21 Prestige Realty. We'll see you soon.